didn't actually plan that. That just happens a lot when you've known somebody for 8 years.
8 years. So thanks for having us. So my name's Elizabeth Uviebinené. I'm a co-author of Staying Your Lane. I'm a marketing manager as well.
My name's Yomi Adegoke, and I'm also a co-author of Staying Your Lane and a journalist and best friend to Elizabeth.
Oh, it's a good job title.
It is, yeah. And it is a job, yeah.
So we had the idea of Staying Your Lane back in 2015 when we, I guess, were just outside post-university. I always say that I'm an accidental author, not because I'm not incredibly proud of the book that we've created and the impact that we've made, but more so because it was never part of my plan in my marketing journey to, I guess, write a book with my best friend. I guess one of those things you maybe write when you're little, like, oh yeah, maybe write a book, but you don't necessarily do it. So I was in like my first proper corporate job in HSBC, and obviously being a big bank in Canary Wharf, I wanted to make a good impression. I was, all steam, all, all, what do you call it? All like, wanted to get at it, wanted to really like make the most of my opportunities. I wanted to make a good impression on my peers and my bosses as well. So I guess I was encountering challenges that being a Black British woman, I wasn't necessarily knowing how to kind of navigate. I looked at my boss, he was white. I looked at his boss, he was white. He looked at his boss, he was white. And I wasn't necessarily sure what my place in that environment would end up becoming. So I read books such as Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and it was a really good book, and I got stuff out of it. But I guess it didn't necessarily speak to my Black British identity. So I guess around that time as well, it was a combination of being frustrated, but also optimistic. I would go to events like this and I would definitely meet people who were essentially like quite ambitious and wanted to get ahead in a different kind of perspective lanes and thrive. And I was definitely encouraged by that. So it was a combination of exasperation, but definitely optimism that kind of led me to call Yomi my best friend. And it was, I guess, after a long week, everyone always asks, like, what moment did you kind of get to be like what incident kind of tipped you over the edge to be like, I'm gonna just, call my best friend and rant. I probably won't even go into that, but I guess it was a feeling of just, I guess, not necessarily sure what my kind of what career I wanted and how it would kind of impact what being a Black British woman would impact and all that sort of kind of feeling. So after a long week, I called Yomi and she was a journalist and she's an amazing writer. So I said to her, well, can you write a book for me, please? I am
word for word, that's exactly what she said.
So you can tell that I'm a quite demanding person. I ask lots of my friends. So in that conversation, it was just such a interesting conversation. It was probably one of the most productive conversations I've probably had in the last how many years of my life, because in that conversation we decided to not only focus on work, to kind of broaden it out to different areas. So talk about health, talk about the education system, talk about money, entrepreneurship. It was just kind of became the Black Girl Bible as well. So as well as part of that conversation, it was important for us to not only write the book, but also create a campaign around Black British women and kind of champion our voices, but also raise our visibility. So it was really important for us to kind of, do that. And in that conversation, that was what sold it to me, being from a marketing background, because I was like, oh, yes, I can, create stuff. And the first thing we did was go onto Google and Google how to get a book deal.
Yeah. And then after Googling how to get a book deal, we were told that we had to find a literary agent. So then we Googled how to get a literary agent, which we then did, and we'll go into a little bit more about that later. But it was very important for us as sort of two best friends from very similar backgrounds, both Nigerian, both from South London, to kind of validate our idea outside of ourselves. It's very easy to kind of, for lack of a better phrase, gas each other up when you're kind of just two people in your sort of house and kind of just, hyping each other up and telling each other it's the best thing in the world. But we've done that with several things and several bad ideas over the years.
And bad outfits.
Bad outfits, bad hair. Yeah, we've done a lot of that kind of thing over the years. So we kind of thought maybe it's something that we should kind of speak about outside of ourselves. So we decided to do a focus group, and we decided to sort of speak to a variety of Black British women from different backgrounds with different interests to kind of validate our idea. And we thought that was really important because I think one of the biggest issues that the mainstream has with catering to Black women and Black British women specifically is the idea that we're not multifaceted and that we're just this homogenous brown glob that have the exact same interests and have the exact same definitions of success. So when we did sort of do that group, which consisted of some close friends, but again, we didn't want it to be then a group of 7 gassing each other up, so we decided to get some strangers involved. Again, the internet's a brilliant place. We spoke to a lot of people on Twitter, got some people from Facebook that we'd never met before, but that we felt would be able to sort of contribute to the conversation in a meaningful way. And again, that was probably the second most productive conversation that we've ever had. We just had a brilliant meeting with these women who were able to sort of validate our idea outside of ourselves. And I think that's been one of our biggest takeaways from this entire process, just being able to prove something and prove a market, because this truly came from a felt need, Elizabeth's felt need. Elizabeth literally asking me to write a book for her. But the reason that she felt that she needed that book, it's something that obviously other Black women that were sort of young and coming into their own, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be through dating, it's something that I guess Black women across the country at all different stages of their lives and development also felt. And we kind of believed that amongst ourselves, but then going out and proving that meant that we were then able to sort of take that into a meeting context with our publishers and then be able to prove that that's something that was definitely necessary. Oh, sorry.
And then we spent the summer of 2015 using that kind of the data and the research and pulling together a proposal. So for non-fiction books, it kind of counts on in terms of can you prove a market, as Yomi said, and we kind of spent dedicated our time doing that. We put data and stats and all of these things and quotes, and I think we kept it very true to ourselves. And I think that's another key takeaway that we've kind of learned along this journey, to kind of remain true to the authentic experiences of who we are. And I think that's kind of you can see in everything that we do, in the front cover, in every kind of in our social media and all our marketing. So yeah, that is Slaying Lane
in a nutshell. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well done.
Very well done. And no time penalties were incurred.
Oh, wow.
How about that? Absolutely.
That's a first. Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, it's just fascinating hearing your story. And it's, first of all, lovely to just hear best friends going on this journey together. Have you been surprised by how the reaction to the book and how people have been really touched by it and just got really excited about it and hyping the book? What's that term you're using? Gassing? I'm clearly from a different generation.
That's us staying true to ourselves.
So tell me a little bit about how have you felt about the reaction to the book?
I think I can speak for both of us when I say we've just been completely bowled over. Mm-hmm. We always say that when we had our sort of publishing, there was a 9-bidding publishing war for the book. So when we had our sort of various meetings during that period, and we're speaking to people and they were kind of give us the sell. Why do you think this book's going to sell? Our response was literally, Black women are the most supportive demographic ever. So we were completely sold that we knew that Black women were going to support this. We knew that Black women and Black people show out and know how important it is to support things that sort of further the culture. I think what surprised us so much was just how people outside of our community and people whose experiences aren't ours have taken to this. And we have a friend that lives in Berlin, and she said that she was speaking to a sort of far-right German man who was talking about the Black British, who was talking about Black experiences and the Black female experience, and was like, well, actually, there's this book out. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of changed my mind a little bit and kind of made me empathise a bit with the Black British female experience. It's called Slaying Your Lane, and she was like, those are my 2 closest friends. And I think we never expected that people, men, women from completely different backgrounds who are so outside of the community would sort of take to it. But it's definitely something that when we were pitching it, we hoped for and that we were very intentional in doing, but we weren't sure if it'd work, so. And
I mean, I guess the skills that you both have between you, the marketing and the PR, the journalism, is incredibly useful. I was struck by that bit where you decided the focus groups and so on. Once you had the idea and you were excited about it and, we've got to write this book, how clear was it that you needed to run it by your own creative disciplines to make sure that it would stand up as a story and that it would stand up from a marketing perspective?
I think because I would say that Yomi was able to kind of see it as something that was immediately oh my God, this is gonna, she always says that she kind of ran away with this idea, our friendship would be broken because I would be in the audience and she'd be telling the audience about like her idea, so it would just be awkward. But I think that we respect each other so much, and I think we respect like our disciplines, and I think we had like strong kind of like non-negotiables like coming to the table when we went to the publishers. So I think because we were very close and we have very similar, we're very different, but we have very similar like overall vision on like in terms of the impact, in terms of what we want to do, how we get there. We may kind of like always be a bit like, oh, what do you think of this? But I think at the heart of everything, we like respect each other so much. So if she says something, it's not a case of like me being like, what do you mean by that? It's really a case of like, oh, okay, that really changed my kind of opinion, okay, and we come to like a good compromise. And I think that's what's really helped us, because when we went to like when we were having all these meetings with the publishers, because we were very like strong and true to what we were trying to do, it wasn't a case of us necessarily saying like, oh, or being like, oh, we had the privilege of having 9 publishers, but we had publishers who didn't necessarily get what we were trying to do. So they would say, oh, why don't you change this book from being black to women of colour? And because we were very sure about why we needed it, it was very easy for us to just, rather than kind of be agonising over it and go, oh, maybe we should, that would sell more, commercial, that would be great. I think for us, it was like, how do we let them down? So for us, we came to the table with like knowing that we wanted to do a photo shoot with women. And that was really important for us, not just to kind of like hear their stories and their advice and everything, but also to kind of pull together, show who they are. And so in the book, in the middle of it, you've got like a photo shoot that we kind of like pulled together ourselves and produced and everything. And a publisher was like, oh, I'm not sure about that. And it was very much, or maybe make it black and white, keep the cost down. And for us, it was like, you don't get what we're trying to do here. So next. So I think we've always just been very like sure about what we want to do. So hard conversations aren't necessarily really hard.
Very, very. Absolutely fascinating. The last question I want to ask before we move on. And of course, there's going to be plenty of questions afterward, I'm sure. But do you feel writing a book of this nature, which is about a whole generation of young black women, health, lifestyle, career, do you feel pressure, that classic role models world, do you feel a lot under more pressure to be that? And how do you feel about the weight of expectation when you walk in the room and people no doubt hanging on your every word? How do you feel about that role model role that I guess comes with the territory of writing a book like this?
I think it's really interesting. I think it's something that we talk about quite a lot, because I think me and Elizabeth, we always say that like if anyone at our university said that they thought that we'd like write this book or that we would like make anything of ourselves in like a proper way, they'd definitely be lying because we certainly weren't like, we were just normal not teenagers, but girls at teenagers that kind of, like just lived crazy lives and had like a great time essentially. So I guess it's been definitely a constant battle trying to like remain true to yourself and kind of try and embody this new like role of being like a role model, and I say that in inverted commas because I don't think either of us would necessarily describe ourselves in that way intentionally, because I think the problem with the term role model is it means that, I suppose that mistakes or kind of like certain behaviours are kind of, everyone makes them, but, you're under that sort of extra level of scrutiny, and it's something that like, certain things that I don't even necessarily think are a mistake. So saying certain words like, we're both from South London, she's from Peckham, I'm from Croydon. So I think that sometimes when we're in certain settings, you go on the BBC, your accent, like this accent that you didn't even know you had just comes out. Suddenly the T's get a bit sharper and, I'm always saying that we completely like code switch across the BBC because it's like we're on BBC Radio 4 and we're talking like this and then we're on one extra and we're like, oh, wagwan. Like, it just, everything just changes. But to me, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think, and I don't think to either of us there's anything wrong with that, but I think that when you are suddenly a role model, it can become, people other than my mum telling me not to say in it, essentially. So I think for us, like, it's definitely, we know that, I guess, to be honest, even when we were putting together the book, we knew that essentially we didn't necessarily have the answers and that we were still growing. We're still quite young. Elizabeth's 26, I'm 27. So that's why we did the interviews, because we weren't trying to say that we had the answers. Elizabeth called me because she didn't, and I told her to co-write it with me because I definitely didn't. So it was very much a conversation of us wanting to speak to those who did know. So I think there's definitely that pressure. I tweet a lot less because I definitely don't want to get into like Twitter beef now, now that it means something. thing. But it's something I think we're still trying to come to terms with and grow into because it's weird.
And overall, it's a privilege as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I didn't necessarily realise that would kind of come with, like, actual people coming up to us and saying, oh my God, you're so inspiring. And we had a conversation earlier today because I was like, I feel uncomfortable with the word people calling me inspiring because if they knew my story, then maybe they'd be like, oh, that's inspiring. But writing a book is an achievement, and I definitely think that. But I wouldn't say, like, you know, collectively, like, individually, I'm an inspiring person. So I think that perspective is kind of sometimes easy. And I think because there's two of us, we just always have each other in terms of, like, sound checking and, like, a good soundboard and stuff.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much of the story with us.